On a remote farm, nestled deep within the rolling hills, old Farmer John lived alone. The farm had been in his family for generations, and his weathered hands had tilled the soil and cared for the livestock for as long as he could remember. But tonight was different. This Halloween was special, for his son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter were expected to visit him. He hadn't seen them in months, and he longed for their cheerful company. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Farmer John finished the last of his chores. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the farm. He checked the clock on the wall, the hands ticking ever so slowly towards the appointed hour. With each passing minute, a strange unease settled upon him. It was as if the very air around him had grown heavier, laden with anticipation. Outside, the autumn winds whispered through the cornfields, creating an unsettling symphony of rustling leaves and creaking branches. The trees seemed to sway with a mournful rhythm, and the distant howls of coyotes added to the sense of foreboding. It was the kind of night that sent shivers down one's spine, even without reason. Farmer John paced the creaking wooden floors of his cozy farmhouse. The old grandfather clock chimed, signaling the arrival of the appointed hour. His son had promised to arrive by 8 p.m., yet there was no sign of their car pulling into the gravel driveway. John's worry deepened, and he glanced at the family photo on the mantel, his son's warm smile in stark contrast to the cold, dark night outside. As the minutes stretched into an agonizing wait, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Perhaps a flat tire, an unexpected delay, or simply the unpredictable nature of the weather. He dialed his son's number, but the call went straight to voicemail. Frustration and concern gnawed at him. With each passing moment, the sense of unease grew, as if an invisible hand was tightening its grip around his heart. Shadows danced on the walls, and the familiar creaks and groans of the old farmhouse took on a sinister tone. Farmer John couldn't help but wonder if he was truly alone on this Halloween night, or if some unseen presence lurked in the dark corners of his home. The farm that had always been a sanctuary now felt like a place where secrets were held, waiting to be revealed. With each echoing chime of the grandfather clock, Farmer John's anxiety deepened. He continued to call his son's phone, desperately seeking answers. Finally, just as he was beginning to lose hope, the phone rang, and he hastily answered. "Dad?" His son's voice crackled through the phone, but something was undeniably off. It was his voice, but the tone was different, as if it belonged to someone else. "We're running late, don't worry. We'll be there soon." Relief washed over John, but a nagging feeling gnawed at him. "Where are you?" he asked, hoping for a more concrete answer. "We're on our way," his son replied, evading the question. "Just stay inside and wait for us." The conversation continued in a disjointed manner. John couldn't quite put his finger on it, but the topics of discussion felt peculiarly disconnected. His son spoke of strange things, things that had no relevance to their usual conversations. "They say Halloween is when the veil between worlds is thinnest, Dad," his son said. "It's when the spirits can cross over, but don't worry, we'll be there soon." The cryptic words sent shivers down John's spine. This was not like his son, who was usually straightforward and practical. The call ended abruptly, leaving John feeling more bewildered than before. The unease that had settled upon him earlier intensified, and he couldn't help but notice the eerie silence outside. The rustling leaves and howling winds had ceased, and the farm had fallen into an unsettling stillness. He checked the clock once more. It was well past 9 p.m. now, and his family should have arrived by this time. His daughter-in-law, his precious granddaughter, where could they be? The air inside the farmhouse felt heavy with a growing sense of dread. With trembling hands, John attempted to call his son again, but the phone rang without answer. Desperation consumed him, and he decided to head out to the driveway, determined to meet them on the road. As he opened the creaking farmhouse door, he hesitated, the moonlight casting long, eerie shadows over the farm. There, on the gravel driveway, he noticed something that sent a chill down his spine. A flickering glow in the distance, like the dim lights of a car, swaying as if suspended in midair. The farmhouse's front yard seemed to stretch out indefinitely, and the horizon looked distorted. It was as if the farm itself had become a surreal, nightmarish landscape. Fear coursing through his veins, John knew he was about to embark on a journey into the unknown, one that defied all explanation. His heart pounded, and he took the first tentative step toward that ethereal, beckoning glow, determined to uncover the mysteries that now surrounded him. As John took hesitant steps toward the eerie, swaying glow in the distance, his heart raced. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The moonlight illuminated the path ahead, revealing the familiar landmarks of his farm. Yet they appeared twisted and distorted, as if the very fabric of reality had been manipulated. His imagination ran wild as he walked through the night. He saw shadowy figures moving in the fields, heard ghostly whispers carried by the wind, and felt unseen eyes watching his every move. The air grew colder, the ground unsteady beneath his feet. The farm itself had transformed into a nightmarish dreamscape. "Am I going mad?" John muttered to himself, his voice quivering. His old age and the unsettling events of the evening had shaken his sanity. He couldn't trust his senses, and paranoia gnawed at him. Finally, he reached the source of the strange, swaying light. To his horror, he found it to be an old lantern hanging from a tree branch. The lantern flickered eerily, casting grotesque shadows that danced around him. He felt a cold hand on his shoulder and spun around, but there was no one there. The spectral sensation sent chills down his spine. John stumbled back toward the farmhouse, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and terror. The very walls of his home seemed to close in on him, whispering secrets and cruelly mocking him. The shadows that played on the walls took grotesque forms, and the familiar creaks of the old house became ominous whispers. Just as he was on the verge of breaking down, a sound from outside caught his attention. It was the distant rumble of an engine, growing louder with each passing moment. Hope surged through him, and he rushed back to the front door. He swung it open, ready to embrace his family, only to be met with a sight that shattered his sanity. There, parked on the gravel driveway, was the car he had seen earlier, the same car that had been suspended in midair. Its headlights cast an eerie glow, revealing a ghastly scene. The doors were ajar, and inside he saw his son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter, their lifeless eyes staring into nothingness. Tears welled in John's eyes as he approached the car, a cry of anguish escaping his lips. He reached out to touch his son's cold hand, and that's when he noticed something inexplicable. Their spirits, translucent and ethereal, seemed to rise from their lifeless bodies. His son smiled. His daughter-in-law held her granddaughter close, and they beckoned to him, their love and warmth emanating from their otherworldly forms. "Dad, we had an accident," his son's ghostly voice whispered, "but we promised we'd visit on Halloween. We couldn't break that promise." John fell to his knees, overwhelmed with a mix of relief, grief, and wonder. His family had come back from beyond the grave to fulfill their commitment to him. The farm, once a place of terror, now radiated with their love and devotion. As the moonlight bathed them in its silvery glow, John reached out to touch his family, feeling their spectral embrace, and he wept with a bittersweet joy, knowing that in the realm of the supernatural, promises could transcend death itself.